Hello and welcome. What would you say is your ultimate spiritual experience? Something that is a guarantee of spiritual expansion and growth. Some people would say ayahuasca or meditation. For me, and I would say this experience is guaranteed, 100% guaranteed, to cause you to expand and grow and develop and maybe even break you down first, but then teach you how to rebuild. And that would be the experience of romantic relationships. You see, we're all here to experience different things, and we all took on different soul themes to explore. Relationships are like mirrors. They will reflect back to you all your truths, all your shadows, everything about yourself. Not just the parts that you enjoy hearing about or the parts that are actually very beautiful that maybe you weren't even aware of. Perhaps it took that other person to shine a light on those beautiful parts of your soul or self. But relationships, as most of us know, have a tendency to highlight the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if you are somebody who really wants to explore your shadow, avoiding relationships out of fear or insecurity is not going to teach you anything. So it's very different if you've come to the conclusion that you want to be alone, because I do know people who have decided that after exploring various facets of relationships, and I think that's perfectly fine and healthy if that's what your heart wants. And by the way, there are souls who come here with that intention, that they will live a life of solitude, or that they will have maybe they'll get married and it won't work out, and they will live the rest of their life single. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's a choice made from a secure place, from a place of knowing. As long as it's genuine and it's truthful from the soul, from the heart, I think that's fine. Now, I think that the souls that come in with that are often highly evolved. They're often someone very, very close to me in my family was born with that intention, and he is one of the most angelic, spiritually expanded, activated human beings I've ever met. And it's almost like his soul doesn't need that lesson, that deepening of knowing the self that relationships will provide. So we're born into our culture, and different cultures will represent love and romance in different ways. And for those of us in the Western world, we are shown this very fantastical image of romance and intimacy from a very, very young age. So it starts as young as listening to our parents read us fairy tales and storybooks, and the impressionable mind takes on these fantasies. I feel that as we are growing and expanding into the fifth dimension. Our understandings and perspective of romantic relationship is rapidly changing, and we are exploring new ways of living out that dynamic. You may be feeling at this time an impatience, a desire and a need to connect with somebody else, to live out that fantasy. But I would say be careful what you wish for, because relationships are so eye-opening, heart-opening, soul-expanding, and sometimes people go into them unconsciously. And it's not that there's no bad intentions. Most people, right? Most people enter relationships with a sense of curiosity and openness and genuine desire to create something of beauty with somebody else. But the thing about relationships are, they're not like cigarettes. They don't come with a health warning on the cover. So it's up to us to use our discernment, and it's up to us to know whether this connection is worth exploring or not. And how you do that is you tune into your heart. And if your heart is saying you must leave, or you should not spend more time with this person, or another very important giveaway is, how do you feel when you're not with that person? So you go on the first few dates. How are you feeling after the date? How are you feeling the next day? Maybe you spend a day with somebody. The next morning when you wake up, how are you feeling? Because you've blended energy with that person in the time that you've been hanging out. And just after and the next day, you're still processing and experiencing the essence of that person. Be aware that if somebody's company, whether it's friendship or relationship, any kind of ship, you want to feel that the people you're spending time with are encouraging you, are supporting you. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend time with people that challenge you, because often our soulmate tribe are people that will challenge us, that will push our buttons, that will point out, or maybe not point out, that's too strong or severe, but will mirror back to us our stuff. But it's done in a loving way. It's not critical, it's not judgmental. And I would say, if you're dating somebody, getting to know somebody, and you feel this uncomfortable feeling of being judged or criticized, and it doesn't feel good in your gut and in your heart, I would say question whether you're spending time with the right person. Because the people that were really meant to stay exploring relationship with, in the long run, are healthy for us, are good for us, are supportive. There's a sense of, I'm safe with this person, I'm seen. And there's also a truthfulness, so that you can show up as you are. You can show up in the authentic state that you're in at that time. So if you're feeling exhausted, if you're stressed out, when you show up with that person, you can express that, and you don't have to hide that or cover that up. And you know that as you show up as you are, that they're going to love you and hold a space for you, and they're still going to see the soul you. So it's like they're not invested in your meat suit. They see beyond that. So you know that whatever's going on in your immediate life experience, they're going to see past that and into the soul you. Now that's a rare, precious find, because as you spiritually mature, you realize that our soulmates, and I mean it not just romantically, but all of our soul mates, our mates, our connections from our soul tree per lifetime. You know, we're not talking lots and lots and lots of people. You will have soulmates who agree to be fleeting in your life. So they will come in and act as a bridge to get you through something. You'll even have somebody you were married to in a past life agree to show up at a pivotal time for 5 minutes and say the most vital, stunning, stark piece of information to you that your soul goes, oh, thank you, I needed that. And then off they go, and they won't, their soul is like, I'm only going to show up for 5 minutes. We're going to have a brief interlude. I'll see you next lifetime. It's not our time, babe. It's not our time to have that fleshed out experience. We'll keep that for another time when you and I are both more expanded as souls, more masterful of our spirituality, so that we can come together and have a better life than we would in this lifetime, because we're not as developed as we need to be. So we often come across those, they're like angel moments, you know. We often come across those people when we go through some massive shock. So, you know, you're out in public and you get a call to say somebody very close to you is dying or is sick or has died. That's when that person will often show up to hold your hand for those 5 minutes. And I don't mean physically, you know, but they show up to say the right thing or to get you from A to B. I often refer to my own experience of that would be one of my dear friends. So about a week before my dad died, she was just in her house, and she heard a voice very, very clearly say, you must make time for Avine. And she said it wasn't a voice in her head. It wasn't like when you're channeling or you hear your angels speak and you can kind of hear that spiritual voice. She said this was a physical, clear, firm, very firm voice. And she actually thought for a moment that somebody had broken into her house and was in her sitting room. Like she was actually like, is there someone here? And they said it a few times. Like, do you understand? You must make time for Avine. Make sure that you free up your time to support Avine. And she was stunned because it was so crystal clear. And she knew then that something big was about to happen. So months prior to that, we had been collaborating to give a workshop for super sensitives, for high sensitive beings. And we'd booked the place. We were going to give the workshop and everything. So she lived in the West and she said, I'm going to come up to Dublin. I'll meet you in the Gresham Hotel. We'll get tea. We'll bring our notes. We'll combine how we're going to structure this workshop, how we're going to do this. So we did that. And we were only 5 minutes. The tea had barely arrived at the table. We're about to compare notes and my phone rang. And it was my brother to say that my dad had taken a bad turn. He had to be resuscitated. He was dying. He was on his way out. I needed to get to the hospital as soon as possible. And naturally, I got a big shock. And I got the shakes and I practically dropped the phone and I was totally stunned. And my friend remembered the voice because she was due to get the next train back to the west. A 3.5 train journey. And she remembered the voice saying, "You must make time for Aving. You must support her." So she took me by the hand and she said, "I'll take you to the hospital." Because I was like, I was just completely shocked and overwhelmed. I was, 31, 32? No, I was 32, I think. And I had no experience really that close